If you've ever worked in any blue-collar job, then you've definitely had a moment where you're eating lunch with one of the unks and they casually just drop one of the craziest life stories that you've ever heard. I've spent about 4 years in the oil field now, and I've had more of these conversations than I can count. And to be honest, when I was younger, I wasn't really paying attention to what these guys were really saying. But looking back on it, there are 4 different money lessons that I learned from that time that most guys my age probably will never learn. And all of these lessons came from watching these mistakes play out right in front of me. So the first lesson is some OG unk advice that you've probably heard before, and that's that you have to avoid thinking with your Johnson at all costs. And this is because I met a lot of guys who had to learn this the hard way. Maybe they met a cute girl at the bar one night, one thing leads to another. Next thing you know, the guy has $1,000 child support payments for a kid he never gets to see, locked in for 18 years. Or maybe they married a girl that they thought was the one after 6 months, only to get a divorce and lose their house and their 401k in the process. And when it comes to risk versus reward, I honestly think this is one of the most lopsided trades that you could ever make. One night of fun for the cost of $18,000 a year that could have otherwise been put into the stock market. Now, I'm not saying to avoid women, just make sure the decisions you're making are coming from your own head. The second lesson is that investing knowledge, especially in your 20s, is not something to take lightly, and honestly just not something to take for granted at all. And I think a lot of people in the personal finance space forget this because it seems like the idea of investing in the S&P 500 through a simple ETF is just preached everywhere you go. But I've had lots of conversations with guys around my age, like maybe in their late 20s or early 30s, just about whether or not they're investing, and they kind of just give me this weird look and tell me that, maybe it's something they'll look into later, or, it's something their uncle does, but they've never really thought about. And it's this idea that investing is still for people like Jordan Belfort on Wolf of Wall Street. Meanwhile, investing is really something anyone can do with just their cell phone by downloading an app to set up monthly contributions. But I think a lot of us forget that none of us would know this if it wasn't for places like YouTube, where we just stumbled across that first video that explained investing. So if you're watching this and you already know about the power of investing, especially early on in your 20s, that's a huge privilege, and you gotta make sure you're using that to your full advantage. And if you have any friends or family members that aren't investing, but you know that they should be, make sure you get them educated and send them this video. The third lesson is that health is your most important investment that you can make. And I know it's cliche and sounds like something your mom would tell you, but this is something I've seen with my own 2 eyes. A lot of guys, especially in these industries like the oil field, spend their younger years just doing whatever they can to make more money, whether that means losing sleep and grabbing the quickest, most convenient food option. And early on, it seems like it makes sense because you're doing what you can to get after that bag, but you don't realize how that's going to catch up to you later. And trust me, I've met guys that have done really well for themselves, but then they hit their 40s and suddenly they're plagued with diabetes, high blood pressure, and chronic pain. And these are guys that have spent their whole lives working really hard to build something, only to be in this position where they don't even know if they'll be around long enough to really enjoy it, or even be in a position where they even can enjoy it given their state. And from seeing this, I've learned that money and health go hand in hand. You have to work hard to earn money and invest, but at the same time, you have to put an equal effort into maintaining your health so that you can actually enjoy the wealth that you've built along the way. And the final lesson that I've learned is that even if you make a really great income, lifestyle creep can steal generational wealth right from out under you. And this is another one that I've seen firsthand. Guys who essentially grew up with nothing in rural communities that were plagued with a lot of drug issues, and they were the anomaly that was able to make it out and make something of themselves in the oil field, earning 6 figures. And these guys were some of the hardest workers that I've ever met. But for a lot of them, the way they showed off the success was through buying new toys. They'd go out and buy a brand new truck every single year just because they could, or they'd buy campers and ATVs. And whatever it was, I just couldn't help but wonder what would happen if they took all of that money and invested it instead. That's generational wealth that could be passed down for things like college tuition or house payments. And that's the type of head start that can have a generational shift. So look, I'm not saying you guys need to be in the oil field to understand these lessons. I'm just saying that this is where I saw them and learned them. And at the end of the day, none of this is unique to my industry. I mean, this is something you'll see in every single industry to all sorts of different guys with all sorts of different backgrounds. So whether you're in finance or HVAC, the traps are the same. Protect your decisions, learn how your money works, take care of your body, and don't let a bigger paycheck just become a bigger lifestyle. And that's really it. Do with that information what you will.